This is Frank A. Leach, and this is a 1906 Gold Double Eagle, a small piece of the $300 million placed at risk by the great 1906 earthquake. As San Francisco burned, Superintendent Leach and his hardy band of men worked feverishly to save the city's mint, and with it, the U.S. economy. The 3-day firestorm was so intense that even metal melted into unidentifiable lumps. So, shouldn't 1906 coins be rare? Using Mr. Leach's memoir, we will follow his journey through the fiery inferno, and will also search the beautiful Mountain View Cemetery to find his headstone. Welcome to the History of Money. I'm Tom, your guide on today's journey. We're delving into a remarkable story that begins with these very coins, minted at the San Francisco Mint in 1906. But this story isn't just about money, it's about courage, resilience, and a pivotal moment in American history. In this video, join me as we uncover why, on April 18th after a powerful earthquake, Frank Leach left his family in Oakland and braved the treacherous journey to the Mint, confronting raging fires, treacherous streets, and armed soldiers with fixed bayonets. It all seems so unreal. How can we truly understand the threat of a large earthquake today? The big ones come so infrequently, maybe once a generation, that I don't really know how to be prepared. How much should I respectfully fear earthquakes, and how much can I rely on modern planning and infrastructure? Should we worry about something we can't ultimately control? Growing up, my fascination with coins, especially those bearing the S mint mark, led me to uncover the rich history woven into each piece I obtained. This curiosity deepened when I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area and learned that the Mint not only survived the infamous 1906 earthquake and fire, but also played a pivotal role in safeguarding a significant part of the state's wealth. This building, a silent witness to one of California's most tumultuous periods, stood as a symbol of resilience and continuity amidst chaos, much like the coins it minted that we can now hold and admire as tangible pieces of history. Around 10 years ago, I got the rare opportunity to visit the old San Francisco Mint building, joining a guided tour of the empty, abandoned facility. Besides the details of how each room was originally used, I was fascinated to see the evidence of the fire that threatened to destroy the whole building, including the $300 million of gold and silver reserves in its bursting vaults. Understanding that Frank Leach was at the helm during those pivotal moments, I pored over his memoir, which revealed his life across the bay in Oakland. He resided in a Victorian home, much like the ones in the city around me. His narratives offered me a vicarious journey through time, and I could mentally traverse the Bay Area with Leach's words as my guide, treading the same paths where he witnessed history unfold. But as I juxtaposed this with my own experiences of driving the freeways, navigating exit ramps, crossing bridges, and hopping on BART, I couldn't help but notice the stark differences in how we travel today. Leach's daily journey from Oakland to San Francisco, particularly on the day of the fire, stood in bold contrast to the modern commutes we're all familiar with. Walking his path and comparing it to the photos from 1906 vividly brings to life the Edwardian era, and I begin to see the magnitude of what this city went through. As I went further into Leach's genealogy, I learned that he was buried in Oakland at Mountain View Cemetery, which is not too far from me. At that point, I felt compelled to try to find his actual headstone. There's something so personal about visiting someone's final resting place. It can be beautiful and inspiring, especially if you want to emulate your heroes and accomplish more in your life. For instance, when Mozart was my age, he had been dead for 17 years. So later, I'll bring you along on my quest to find the family plot where he was buried, so I can pay my respects and properly honor this remarkable figure in the history of U.S. coinage. The research I conducted this past summer unveiled a surprising fact. There was a time when Los Angeles wasn't the largest city in California, much less one of the biggest in the United States. In the early 20th century, that honor belonged to San Francisco, the city by the bay. San Francisco was a modest port town dominated by the Presidio, an army post, when California was ceded to the United States at the end of the Mexican-American War in February 1848. But everything changed with the California Gold Rush, triggered by James W. Marshall's discovery at Sutter's Mill. As people from around the globe poured into California, most landed first in San Francisco. Its natural deep harbor made it the gateway to the gold fields. The city's population skyrocketed, from just 1,000 residents in 1848 to 25,000 by 1850. Colonel R.B. Mason, the military governor of California, reported that thousands of men mined gold worth tens of thousands of dollars daily. This unprecedented wealth generation led to his recommendation for a mint near Yerba Buena, the budding city that would become San Francisco. Congress responded to the gold influx by creating new coin denominations. However, the supply of coined money remained inadequate. By 1849, gold production had reached $10 million, a figure not seen again until 80 years later. The peak came in 1852, with $82 million in gold from nearly 4 million ounces mined. This wealth wasn't just in refined bars and coins, but also in everyday circulation as nuggets, pickers, and dust. After years of lobbying by local assayers and delays in Congress, San Francisco finally got its mint in 1854, albeit in a modest 60-square-foot space downtown. The Comstock Lode discovery in 1859 further strained this facility, flooding San Francisco with silver for minting. By the 1860 census, San Francisco had become the largest city west of the Mississippi River, a status it maintained as it continued to grow in population and economic importance. The downtown mint, now a financial hub for the western U.S., desperately needed expansion. An 1868 earthquake prompted plans for a sturdier structure. In 1870, the cornerstone of the new mint was laid, featuring a ceremony with national media and the interment of a full set of S-Mint mark coins from 1870. Some of those are among the rarest in U.S. history. And it wasn't until 1874 that the Granite Lady finally opened its doors. In its first year, it produced over 1.2 million $20 double eagles, and millions of other coins, outstripping the mints in Philadelphia and Carson City. This output symbolized the city's rapid growth and its crucial role in the nation's financial system. By 1897, the year Frank Leach became the superintendent, San Francisco was a thriving metropolis. The United States Mint branch, under Leach's administration, was now a crucial part of the nation's coin production. It was turning out vast quantities of gold and silver coinage, reflecting the city's ongoing importance in the national economy. San Francisco's rise as an economic powerhouse, anchored by the mint's operations, set a critical backdrop for the events leading up to the 1906 earthquake. As the city approached the new century, it was a symbol of the American dream and a testament to the resilience and entrepreneurial spirit that defined the era. Central to our story of the Granite Lady is Frank Aliamon Leach, whose life was indelibly shaped by the gold rush. Born in 1846 in upstate New York, Leach was only 2 years old when gold was discovered at Sutter's Mill. His family, true 49ers, moved to California in pursuit of the golden dream. In 1852, at the tender age of 6, he journeyed with his mother to Sacramento to join his father, who had started a soda water bottling company. The family then settled on a farm in Napa after surviving several fires and floods in early 1850s Sacramento. These early experiences would later be reflected in Leach's resilient and adaptive character. Frank's career began in the world of newspapers, first in Vallejo, and then in Oakland, where he moved in 1886 with his wife Mary. His involvement in California politics, combined with his role as the founder of the Oakland Inquirer, positioned him well within the civic landscape. In 1891, President Harrison recognized his influence and appointed him to the Assay Commission. Then in 1897, amidst the turmoil of a contentious election, Leach was offered the role of the superintendent of the San Francisco Mint. It was a surprising shift from journalism to the meticulous world of minting, but Leach embraced it with his characteristic zeal. His first decade at the Mint was marked by numerous challenges and innovations. He heightened security, streamlined operations, and relentlessly pursued efficiency, cutting down operational costs significantly. His meticulous oversight extended from the smelting and refining processes to the integrity of the workforce and the immense reserves in the underground vaults. By 1906, San Francisco had transformed into a city of over 300,000 residents, still the largest in the West and the 8th largest in the United States. It was a city of grandeur, home to influential companies and cultural icons, earning the moniker Paris of the West. The prosperity and vibrancy of this Victorian jewel were captured in a film shot on April 14, 1906, just days before it would face its greatest trial. The footage, taken from a cable car on Market Street, reveals a city at the peak of its opulence, unaware of the looming disaster. As the city bustled with the latest technological advancements, the San Andreas Fault lay silently below, soon to unleash one of the most devastating earthquakes in American history. I think the best way to humanize this disaster is to follow eyewitness Mr. Frank Alaimon Leach, who in 1917 wrote down for us the events of that day as it unfolded for him, his family, and his devoted employees. His memoir is a detailed account of Leach's experiences as a newspaperman, including his coverage of major news events such as the Spanish-American War and the 1906 earthquake, as well as being a valuable historical record of the events and personalities that shaped the state during the late 19th century. Frank Leach wrote in his memoir that he was suddenly awakened soon after 5 o'clock on that memorable morning on April 18th, along with the hundreds of thousands of others who lived within 100 miles of the epicenter. For 40 seconds, his home danced a lively jig in the mounting intensity of the P-wave, the walls and ceilings twisting and squirming, the terrifying noises, the smashing and crashing, and the thumping of falling bricks told of the awfulness of this visitation. Then, after a 10-second pause, the stronger S-wave hit with jarring destruction for another 25 seconds. Dust filled the air as the relentless shaking continued. While lying in bed, Leach and his wife witnessed chimney debris hurtling past their bedroom windows. They believed that staying in the bed was the safest option during the erratic and violent motion. During the peak of the fury, the motion and rhythm reminded one writer of a terrier shaking a rat. As church bells clanged outside with a senseless fury, Leach admitted that, for a moment, he entertained the notion that Judgment Day had arrived. The silence which followed was almost as awesome as the sounds of the quake. After hastily getting dressed, he rushed down to the street, expecting widespread devastation. To his surprise, the damage in Oakland appeared relatively minimal. Despite tumbling chimneys and collapsing walls, Oakland had suffered only a few fatalities. After an early breakfast, ensuring his family was safe, Leach walked downtown. Upon reaching 14th and Broadway, his thoughts first turned to San Francisco. He saw the heavens above the city filling with black smoke, signaling a disaster more appalling than anything ever dreamed of. Immediately, he knew his place was at the Mint. The Panic of 1857, contributed to by the loss of 10 tons of California gold in the sinking of the SS Central America, was still fresh in the American consciousness, along with the panics of 1873 and 1893. Leach could only imagine the consequences if the Mint's vaults, carrying 30 times the value of that carried by the SS Central America, were to be lost in this fire. So he rushed to the ferry terminal, determined to get to the Mint. Leach's journey to the ferry was fraught with difficulties: crowded trains, panic-stricken crowds, and the challenge of getting a spot on a ferry bound for a city in flames. At the Oakland Pier, he was initially denied passage, but his urgent plea to Mr. Palmer, the division superintendent, conveyed the critical nature of his mission. He was soon aboard a ferry, witnessing the devastation unfolding in San Francisco. Standing on the ferry's top deck, Leach saw the flames leaping high, devouring building after building in the city's heart. The uncertainty of the Mint's fate increased his anxiety to reach the building and fulfill his duty. His description of the earthquake aftermath in Oakland made me curious about where exactly he lived. After some research, I found his address and the renamed street. I visited the site, now a parking lot, and the adjacent street with its original Victorian homes. These photographs I took on the next street over help us imagine Leach's family home and the route he had to take to the Oakland Ferry Terminal. I'm here today to go to San Francisco for the ferry. I'm going to take the ferry across just like Frank Leach did. I'm going to see what Frank Leach saw as he approached San Francisco, imagining the smoke and flames in front of him, anxious to reach the Mint. As I took the ferry across the bay, retracing Leach's steps, I felt a blend of excitement and solemnity. Following in the footsteps of a man faced with an extraordinary challenge, I pondered if I would have made the same choice. Would I have thought, boy, I'm glad I'm not stuck over there? Or would I have left my family behind and begged the authorities to go full steam ahead into the towering inferno? I was grateful that the ferry still runs from Oakland to San Francisco, and traveling across the bay from that perspective really brought home what life here must have been like before these enormous bridges were built. If you're enjoying my journey through the history of money, please consider subscribing to my channel so you can be notified when, Lord willing, I release more episodes. Landing from the ferry, Leach was met with San Francisco transformed by catastrophe. Both sides of Market Street were a mass of flames for several blocks. The ferry building stood isolated, spared by the flames thanks to a broad basalt-paved area. It was there that he found out that the water mains had broken in the violent shaking, and there was no water pressure for the firefighters to stop the over 50 separate fires that had erupted as a result of the earthquake. Leach's path uptown was blocked. To the north, along the waterfront, he made his way on the docks, passing in front of burning buildings and amid firefighting efforts. Refugees of all classes and conditions raced toward the ferry building. Despite the widespread distress, Leach noted an absence of panic. A collective realization of a shared fate seemed to unite the crowds in a display of resilience and mutual support. He said he journeyed as far north as Jackson or Pacific Street, and then west around the fire. Firefighters were concentrated on Sansome Street, battling to prevent the blaze from spreading west. Through Kearny Street and out of the fire zone, Leach observed the earthquake's selective destruction. Well-built structures on solid foundations stood mostly unharmed, while poorly constructed buildings on fill had collapsed. The Valencia Hotel produced one of the single greatest tragedies and loss of life that day. The 4-story wooden building collapsed and sank into its basement, a pile of splintered timbers under which many people were trapped. The basement was full of water from a broken main, and some dozens of victims drowned. The exact number of dead was never certain, since the fire swept through before the wreckage could be cleared. Crossing Union Square, a somber sight confronted him, the body of a man near the Dewey Monument, a stark reminder of the earthquake's human toll. After leaving Union Square, Leach walked down Powell toward Market Street, only to be halted by soldiers. Their strict enforcement prevented people from rescuing personal belongings from a burning district. It was only when a policeman recognized Leach that he was escorted past the military lines, down to 5th Street, and to the Mint. Arriving at that same ferry terminal, I pondered the time frame of Leach's journey, because according to period maps of the devastation, the areas he mentioned passing through were burned by the firestorm. A 1908 University of California thesis and AI analysis of his memoir helped me piece together his route. I deduced that he reached the Mint around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Visualizing Leach's route, he started at the ferry building. He headed north along the waterfront in front of burning buildings, west up Jackson and Pacific Street and around the fire, and then southwest through Union Square, witnessing the aftermath of the earthquake, then south down Powell Street, stopped by soldiers on Market Street, and finally escorted to the Mint south of Market on 5th and Mission. This detailed mapping of Leach's path gives us a clearer picture of the challenges he faced and the landscape of a city in turmoil. In our next episode, we'll explore Leach's leadership at the Mint during the firefighting efforts and how his decisions impacted the Western United States' economy. Thank you for watching today, and please join me next time to continue this incredible journey.